Hello and welcome to Playing to Win, a weekly podcast produced by My Disability Sports South Australia. We will share stories and experiences about life with a disability and the important role health and well-being plays for us. Our army of guests will also share their experiences as well as the highs, lows and everything in between. My name is Tim Haggis and I am joined by Stephen Palmer, Australian blind cricketer and rising tennis star, and Candice Kennedy, national road tandem bike champion and #1 female blind tennis player in Australia. And we are all playing to win. Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Playing to Win. Tonight I'm running solo due to my co-hosts having prior commitments, but we have got a man in the studio tonight who has lived a very colourful life. He's an international athlete in 2 sports, a school teacher, he's got a fair bit going on, a man of great wealth of knowledge. Mark Haskett, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you for having me.
Our listeners will probably be very interested in is your very early childhood. So just to give an overview is you were born in Fiji, is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in a little town about half an hour outside of the capital, Suva, a place called Nassori, on the banks of the Rua River. And I suppose my journey started in a little orphanage by the name of Dilkusha, which is quite a well-known orphanage for those locals who know Fiji very well. I was actually adopted, came to Australia when I was 6. The strange thing about the scenario about me getting into Dilkusha was the history that my dear friend Christopher Bria and his parents who were based at St. Christopher's, and what they didn't want was 2 boys to be separated. They wanted to have 2 boys together, 2 boys that could play with with one another, get to know each other and build a friendship from there. And so that's how it all
hang on a sec. So exactly how far do you go back with Chris?
We go back to the early days of, when we were about 3 years old.
And where's he now?
Yeah, he's based in Melbourne. His dad and my dad worked together as magistrates for a number of years, but the real connection was his mum, Pam, who's no longer with us, and my mum worked together as well. So my mum was a nurse. His mum was working quite heavily with the adoption side of things.
So he and you are the only 2 people that remember this period of your life.
Stranger things have happened, Tim, in recent times. After my more recent trip back to Fiji, we had a reunion for the 115 years of Dilkusha, and there was probably a gathering of around about 60 to 70 people at this reunion for people who'd been living in the orphanage or have been taken care of by the orphanage over that period of time. And people like us, the superintendents who are in charge, some of those guys were there, but people from all around the world, not just Australia, people from Italy and people from America and people from New Zealand, quite a few of us from Australia, obviously.
And many your age, your sort of time that you were there?
Yeah, well, there's a few that are our age, but there's a lot that are a little bit older than us. I'm probably talking 4 or 5 years older that attended that day. And I've been able to reconnect with one particular lady who lives around the corner from us now.
Who I was lucky enough to meet the other day, your birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, mm-hmm. Well, there's a bit of a story behind that connection too, where my fiancée, Katie, she had taught my sister's daughter at school only a couple of years ago. So that's how the connection became to be.
Well, we'll get to that later, because I guess the thing that it's important to note is why Mark is on Playing to Win and talking to us, because he is a vision impaired athlete. Starting off in an orphanage in Fiji was challenging enough in itself. The journey that your life has taken since then is quite significant, but I wanted to let the listeners know that before we finish the story, because it is very much a part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd always loved sport. I'd always loved being outdoors. I'd always loved running around and playing with soccer balls or with anything I could get my hands on. And being raised, I suppose, by a big family who also loved being around sport, I was always encouraged to have a go and dive in and get things done and just to purely enjoy yourself. That's what I did. Initially, I wanted to actually umpire Aussie rules at the at the highest level, being the AFL, and I got to the academy, the SNFL, for a couple of years. I was umpiring at the amateur league for a few seasons too, and then realised that there was a life for sport for visually impaired people. So
6 years old, you probably don't remember a lot about leaving the orphanage, coming to live in Australia, in South Australia, and getting to live in be in a good family environment, and then getting all those opportunities. You probably can't remember how that felt, or did it mean anything to you at the time when it happened? Do you remember?
Only what's been told of me, to me by those around. Some parts of my memory do come back, and I suppose I look back on my time, and in particular with Chris, and some of the things that we used to get up to, and just like playing outside with with water, or on the swings or the play equipment, things like that. I do remember going to church.
This is in Fiji, not in Australia.
In Fiji. And just having to go to Sunday school, and being, I suppose, given one-to-one support by the principal, because they knew that my eyesight wasn't the greatest. But other than that, I don't really remember a lot. Again, only what people have told me.
But you got to Australia when you were 6, and your family, the Haskett family, you go by the name of Mark Ashik Haskett. So do you want to explain Ashik?
That's correct. Yeah, Ashik was it's pronounced Ashik, even though it's spelled Ashik. Ashik was my Fijian name, and Ashik in the language, in the Hindi language, means lover or mad lover. So not many people know that, but it's most people that do know is they're quite have a bit of a giggle and a laugh, and they seem realise that the kind
of the ridiculousness of the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so you've kept a little bit of your Fijian heritage, and you've also now got an Australian name and an Australian family, and things have changed significantly. So you're off to school in Australia. How did that all work out for you?
School was never my favourite place to be. Again,
which is why you've ended up being a school teacher and there every day for the rest of your life.
I know. Tell me about it. I suppose I had an interesting school life. I was always well supported. I was given a lot of attention by teachers and support staff, and in fact, some of my best moments were at school with those particular individuals. And I suppose when I was, I reckon I was about 12 or 13. And because of those people, I then decided that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a teacher, but in particular a PE teacher, because I love being around sport. And so all the way through, I just had that focus to be that teacher. And I still remember Mum saying to me, look, you put your head down and get your work done, and you can become a teacher. You can.
Well, everyone says that to their kids, don't they?
Yep. And that's the message I'll be giving back to my little one as he gets older. But it wasn't only until I was 25 that my younger sister, Natasha, decided that she wanted to go to uni too, and she wanted to do teaching as well, and approached me at the time and said, look, let's go to uni together. Let's get it done. So
let's just get into the sport side of things first, because sport came before your university degree. So tell us, you played sport at school. You were talking about being an umpire and things like that. So where did it all begin for you?
Yeah, so I played one season of AFL at school and played in the forward pocket, but I was never that good. I could never see the ball. In fact,
how old were you when you did this?
I was year 5, so I was probably about 10 or 11 at the time.
Yeah.
And the PE teacher, because my brother and I played in the same team, obviously he was a lot better than me, but the PE teacher at the time said, why don't you become a boundary umpire for your brother's team? And me thinking at the time, that sounds like a good idea. I'll have a go at that. But then reflecting upon that, I thought, well, this probably did me, I suppose, a good service in the sense that he was trying to look after me in terms of my
get you off the field
and get me off the field so I didn't get knocked over. So, and I just fell in love with running after that. I really did. I thoroughly enjoyed running the boundary. In fact, I reported my first player for some not so nice language, but after again, another side story there. And I just kept going and just fell in love with running. I ran to training. I ran to, ran home again. I'd do the loop around home, and some days I'd go for hour-long runs, and that's just the way it was. It's the way I kept fit.
12 years old, sort of 13. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what were you
it
thinking
was a little
about
bit.
your own sport at that point? You were doing boundary umpiring. Were you happy with that, or were you wanting something more? What happened?
Oh, well, I was still pretty young, I suppose, and I just wanted to keep running. I remember talking about wanting to do triathlons. I talked about wanting to be an umpire at the highest level, and just really putting in as much effort as I could. But I just knew I had to keep going, and I was about 18 when I actually stopped doing it. So still quite young.
No one could possibly, like, what if the opposition found out you couldn't see? What?
I think a lot of teams did work out because of the glasses that I did wear, and the fact that I used to turn up to footy games on a bus, and go home on a bus as well.
When you could have had a driver's license, yeah.
So I had to get be driven around by people, and I still remember Andrew Jarman, giving me the nickname of Bottles.
So you were getting paid to be an
stuck.
umpire, weren't you, though?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Early days, it was pretty hard to earn a decent wage. But as I got into the A1 and A2s, I was getting good money then for an 18-year-old. But
so you worked your way up through the ranks. You started low. What? Tell us how it went. Like, where did you start?
Yeah, so back then, I suppose the umpires are still needed today, and I started at a level, what's that, Division 5 or Division 6.
Yeah.
Started there, but as you did your training and you got better and you understood the rules, you worked your way up. Most weeks there'd be some kind of a quiz or a test. You're given this little book and about the rules, and quite often I'd be fascinated with the amount of rules for such a little book. And you just picked it up as you went along, and you learned to look out for things that you otherwise wouldn't look out for. And these are the days when you had to run the boundary, from one side to the other side.
So you would have to run from one goal to the other goal, one side.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You could not do the whole oval, obviously.
No. You just did one half of it. Yeah. I mean, the way I kept up was by watching the umpire. Really, I couldn't. I suppose as it went on, I couldn't see the ball from the other side of the oval, so I just had to follow the umpire or follow the closest player to know where the ball was going. And I suppose that's when I realised that I couldn't do it.
So wait a minute. So let's say there's a pack of players, the umpire's near the pack. Someone kicks the ball 40 metres along the boundary to try and get it out of play further down the ground, or if that was the intention. What would you do? Just sprint after it?
You had to almost kind of predict where the play was going to go. And in some of those tight games and close games that you did come across, it was pretty hard to do it. So you just have to, I suppose, concentrate that little bit harder.
So
in a pack situation, it's always difficult, but free flowing, you could quite easily tell who touched the ball last.
Yeah, well, that's what you had to decide, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did you have to decide? Like, if it went out on the full, you had to know what was going on.
Oh yeah. Sometimes they help, but most of the time I did it.
Oh, very interesting. So you were 18 when you finished doing that?
Yeah.
Because you thought, it's getting a little bit hard for me. So your sight's getting a little bit worse, or the games are getting quicker, or what was the...
Oh, look, I certainly had the fitness to be able to do it, but I think it was probably the eyesight that let me down a bit there.
Okay, so you just started to think maybe not. Now, what sort of mileage would you cover in a game? That's an interesting thing to know.
Geez, oh, look, I've got no idea. I mean, it could vary from 10 k's up to 20 k's. I don't
really?
know.
Running the whole time.
Something. You always had to move. You couldn't stop. I mean, you'd stop to a point, but you think about the length of an oval. When it's small, the smallest oval I ever umpired on was something probably like Walkerville Oval. That was probably the smallest oval.
What would that be, about 160 long?
Yeah, probably. But then you get some of those big ones. I can't even think of some of the bigger ones. Haggis is probably one of the bigger ones that I ran on. Going further, I ran on Norwood Oval. I ran on Glenelg. So some of those I was a decent size too. So there's Sturt Oval out there as well.
Wow. Okay, so now more about the athlete Mark Haskett, because Mark Haskett.
Athlete,
okay, so boundary umpiring is winding down. you do competitive sport at school apart from the season of footy, or?
There wasn't. Look, I was always a good runner, and sports days were great because I knew that I had the fitness to be able to do it. And when it came to athletics, people knew about me, and they knew the distances that I could cover. And I still remember a sports day where my brother and I took off pretty quickly, and I knew that he wasn't going to be able to keep up. So and I knew that I could just go.
Yeah.
And I made it to a couple of Sapsaza days, but I didn't really go on with it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. What sort of distances were you running at Sapsaza?
Oh, look, I did a steeplechase at 3,000 metres, and having the short legs that I did, I was always a disadvantage to the rest of them. I didn't do too well, mind you, because I didn't have the legs to be able to do it. I ran 1,500s, I ran the 800s.
So you were really like doing sprinty kind of stuff then, almost.
Yeah, middle distance, I'd call it.
Wouldn't you have been better doing 5,000-10,000 metre races?
Well, it's funny you say that. Yeah, it's funny you say that now, because I then started doing athletics in my late years at school, and even when I left school, I was doing athletics with Dennis Lorenzen down at Townsend House. So I was just working on 3,000 metres, 5,000 metres, 10,000. I went to a game, something was called the Fespit Games in Canberra one year.
Oh, how old were you when you did that?
I think I was 18. I think I only just left home. Actually, no, I was in year 12. So
you did this in conjunction with cricket?
Yeah. Oh, no, it was before cricket. Before my days of cricket.
So you met athletics. You came to blind athletics before you got to cricket.
Yep.
So how did you meet those guys?
Again, I think it was through the visiting teacher service that got me into that.
So just explain what that is for everyone, because they may not know.
Yeah, so the visiting teacher service is attached to the blind and visually impaired school, which is now known as SASVI, and they send teachers out to children that are based in mainstreams to just check in to make sure that they're getting the right service or the right things in place to help them with their learning. And then that's just a once-a-term checkup.
And you were obviously a low needs student because you only got a once-a-term visit, whereas others, that was going back when I was at school. So, it's been around for quite a while, but I was a once-a-termer as well.
Yeah.
Some people need a lot more support than that, but it's there. And so very qualified teachers go out and visit schools and interact with the students on a one-on-one kind of basis. So they told you about athletics.
Yep.
So you were running with them. So cricket came afterwards. That's what I'm trying to establish.
Yep. So cricket came shortly after that. I don't think I was at athletics for all that long. I think I was only there for 18 months to 2 years, probably at the time. The great man, talking to me now, he was the one that actually got me involved. I got an invitation out to come and try it at Hampstead Gardens and
Hampstead Primary School. Yeah.
Look, I think I was a little bit shy at the time.
Yes, you were.
And I loved it. I loved it at the time. I loved it. I remember saying to my parents, I want to try it again. I want to go again. Can we go? And Mum said to me that I had to be good at school. I had to do my work. I had to get my homework done. If she had a good report from my teachers, I could go. And I tried bloody hard to get there. And
tell your listeners, because I don't know if you remember what happened that day, but I think at the end of that day, you received an invitation to do something, didn't you?
I think I got asked to come back the following week.
Okay, I'll help you out. The state or the national championships were probably a month or two. Yeah. I think it might have been less than a month away.
Yeah, it was.
And you were basically asked, they watched you play on the first day and thought, well, if we put a bit of time and energy into this young guy, we reckon we can get him up ready for the state side at the end of December. So didn't you have that conversation with somebody on the first day?
I probably didn't, but I remember shortly after that, I think about a month into it, I was then asked to if I wanted to play for South Australia. And I think with the help of yourself and Michael Zanis, and talks with my parents, allowed it all to happen. So coming from Glenelg, and the transport wasn't great from there because I was staying at my auntie's place, who just happened to be with my grandfather at the time. Yeah. And I suppose, I don't know how I took it, but I could imagine I wouldn't have been too impressed with being set out for the first game.
Well,
As any young fella would.
it did take you a while to get going, didn't it? So, I mean, it does. The cricket is a game that there's a lot to learn, a lot to know, and there's a big gap between the when you're starting and the top people like the fast bowlers, and it's a bit of a shock when you first face that fast bowling, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is, and one of the things I took out of it was that I had to do some training on my own to be able to help improve. And I remember tying up the wicket ball to a clothesline. I remember tying it up to a tree, the walnut tree in our backyard. I remember just sitting there hitting the ball, making sure that the ball was only a couple of inches off the ground to try and replicate the bowling. But even trying to bowl myself, and would use the tram tracks on my on our family tennis court to help line the ball up to make sure that it went in the direction I wanted to do. So I remember sitting there for at least an hour a day, hour at a time, to make sure that I was ready to go, and that's the way I taught myself. Learning to catch. I was throwing the tennis ball in the air, and if I dropped a ball, I had to restart the count. There were things certainly that I was doing on my own. And it did take me a long time, probably 4 or 5 years. And I suppose one of the things that was talked about was just to be patient and to believe in my own ability, that I could do it, and that people, still had faith. And Nick Hayter was the one guy that was.
And before you go to Nick Hayter, what about your brothers and sisters? Did they bowl at you, or did you play cricket with them in the backyard?
Look, we certainly played backyard cricket. And
but I mean blind cricket. Did you get into that? Because one of our great legends, Peter Greco, had a cricket pitch in his front yard, and his family used to bowl at him, and he used to bowl at them, and there was a big family input from it. Did you have that, or not really?
No. I never had that. I mean, all I had was just a normal backyard cricket. Mark, you play with our rules, and that's it. Because no one had even heard of blind cricket until I was invited out. So
that's right.
I had to learn to bat the way that they did. Had to learn to bowl. Had to. I remember my younger brother and I, he'd say to me, "Right, Mark, you've done this to me, so you have to bowl. I have to get 100 wickets for me to have a bat." And I used to hate it. I used to hate
100 wickets.
Because I could never get him out. Before I could have a bat. And I just used to hate it. And I remember getting him out once. I'm thinking, right, here we go. Got
99 to go.
And
brothers are hard on each other, aren't they? Especially the little ones.
Yeah.
To get the worst treatment. Apparently, the War family used to play cricket together in the backyard, and they used to have few battles. But imagine that. I mean, but all brothers and sisters are very competitive. So you learned a lot from that sort of stuff, though, didn't you? Because you had a sporty family, and when you finally got to the level, you were okay, weren't you?
Yeah, look, I give credit to my brother and all my brothers really for giving me that insight into how to play the game, how to just play the game properly, and even my cousins, playing on the beach on Kangaroo Island, anywhere we had the opportunity, we were playing cricket. Didn't matter, the season, didn't matter where, it was always played. So I'm very thankful for that upbringing and the introduction of competitive sport, because it's taught me so many things about how to get through not only my sporting life but also my career too.
Well, that's true. Now you can talk about Nick Hayter, because you were okay. So let me paint the picture for you. So you played a couple of nationals. You were starting to be an opening batsman. You got into the opening batsman slot. You were really looking to take your game to the next level. I think you were probably 19 or 20, promising young player. Take it from there, Mark. Tell me what happened next.
Yeah, 2004, I think it was. I managed to get the opening spot, and we were playing in Sydney. All the talk was South Australia had a good team, we had a good batting team, we had a good bowling team, and overall we were going to do really well. We were able to secure 2 extra players from another state to come and play for us, and Nick Hayter and Michael Linky, and I'd had really good communications with them into the lead up of that series, and I was really nervous going out to bat because there was I suppose I wanted to impress. I didn't just want to do the talk. wanted to impress. There was nights before where we'd be in our room and we'd be talking about the plan and we'd be talking about how to approach things. We're playing New South Wales in the first game. Nick's brother-in-law was playing in that team as well. So there's a lot of things going for us, and I just remember the pressure being built up. And the morning of it was a nice day. I went out and did the pitch report. The Tony Gregg pitch report. Playing on a synthetic wicket. And I remember Nick saying to me, "Do you want to take the first ball?" And I remember saying, "No, I don't." I think it was Kevin Free bowling. He moves pretty quick. And first ball, Nick takes it and gets caught at.
Yeah.
I think he got caught at mid wicket.
Yeah, I remember it.
My heart just sunk. And
I remember that.
Right, so there's a lot of pressure on me now because I'm still here, so I've got to get some runs and do the right thing by the team. Stay out here, 50 overs. It's a long time, 300 balls. But I knew that with some support from others around it, we could get a decent total. And I think we ended up getting a good total.
What did you end up getting that day? Do you remember? Or?
I think it was a 50. I think it was one of the first ones, and I remember just being told. I had a good day. I had a good day.
Have a good day.
In fact, I had a good series that year, and that was the start of things. And I knew that from there the confidence would come. So, made the Australian team. I was already in the training camp, so it wasn't like it was anything different. But it was nice to be. It was an honour really to play my first series against was it New Zealand?
Oh, mate, you're already. So, did you make that side? Did you the side that played New Zealand?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I did. And I actually opened up in that series too, the first game, and opened up with Eugene, fellow South Australian, Eugene de Broek. And then we went off to England after that, which was even better.
So you've done a bit of touring. You've done a bit of touring. You have kind of been in and out of the Australian blind cricket team. I guess the thing would be that you never really got the chance to settle into that team, did you? Really?
No. Look, that was probably the frustrating thing, is that I was always going to be that number 8 batsman.
Yeah.
I suppose I had a few chances at the top of the order, and I didn't take them when I had the chance.
Who were the other B2s there at the time?
Facky was there. Chris Backstrom was there in England.
Yeah.
So and Peter Robinson was probably the other one, and then Paul Rabanaki was another one that was in.
He was the B2, was he? Paul Rabanaki.
Yeah, I think he ended up being a B2. Yeah.
That's a tough competitive. Yeah.
Certainly the 06 World Cup. Chris Stevens, who was there as well. Lindsay Heaven is another one that came in. Mid 2000s. Matt Cameron. So there's always people around that. I just knew that I had to, and I was never the fastest between the wickets, but Brett Wilson was probably the other one. And loved the way that Brett went about his game, and you know what, it just took a lot of pressure because you knew that Mr. Reliable could get
he's
things
pretty
done, and he was good at both sides of the wickets. So
yes, he was.
B2s for a lot of the years were very strong.
Well, I guess the thing about this is that the best B2s are often B2s that were B3s and become B2s.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the further down, it's hard to explain, but the more your site deteriorates, there are new people coming behind you that are a little further up the road than you site-wise, aren't they? So it's a funny. The game isn't necessarily all about being the best cricketer. It's necessarily about knowing how to play cricket and where your eyesight's at. Because Chris Backstrom, a guy that if you're sorry to cut over you, but the guy that you've just talked about, Chris Backstrom, now is a totally blind player. He doesn't play anymore, but he's now totally blind and he does lawn bowls. So he's gone through. He was a really good B2. He lost his sight a bit more and then went on to other things. So sorry, Mark, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's right. No, I was just going to say, I think the misconception there is that people don't really get, that some people were, some people had the ability to play and were playing competitive sport at a young age. They had the hand-eye coordination, and that's probably where people forget that, those guys that did have that could also play this game of, this vision impaired game too.
Yes.
And
if you played other sport, You could.
Yeah, a lot of us. I mean, look, Peter Robinson was a golfer. He was a
World
good tennis
champion.
player. Yeah, Nick Hayter was a soccer player. So these guys could do it. Matt Horsey was a red ball cricketer.
Yeah, and he lost a bit of sight and took it up, took the game up.
And
so
now look,
a lot of vision impaired people didn't, because Victoria is the only state that has a junior program. Well, now, not so now, but back then, 20 years ago, Victoria were the only state that had a real junior program with actual enough juniors to play competitive. And so if you lived in South Australia or Queensland or Western Australia, you weren't getting exposed to blind cricket properly until you were 16, 17. So you weren't learning those skills when you were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You were playing other sports and coming in.
I suppose we are lucky now that we've got a good systems in place to help that. We've got a young guy, Lockie Wallace, who's enthusiastic. He's a busy guy that just wants to pursue the idea of getting young players into our team, and you can see that already with the introduction of Seth Doubleday, who's there now, Jackson Carrozza, who's there, Darcy Beckrick. So these young guys that are coming through that
and
have been taught from a young age.
Flynn Johnson as well.
Flynn Johnson's another one. Yeah.
There's your team of the future. So these guys are all on the edge of legal blindness right now, and they're going to be the players in the next 5 to 10 years that come through. I suspect Flynn's probably, going to come on pretty quickly because he's getting a little bit up towards 18 now, I think. But the future looks really good. But Mark, let's not leave cricket behind before we cover the most important topic of all, and that was what have you done that no other South Australian captain had done until the moment that you did it? Do you want to tell us?
Look, I'll just briefly touch on the couple of years before, because I think the couple of years before was the making of the 2015 championship.
Okay, yep, sure.
And the fact that we had recruited really well and found players in Stevie Palmer and Ricky Segura, who both played an integral part in that 2015 series. So we were on the way up. We were winning games 2 years prior here in Adelaide. The talk of the town or talk of the country for South Australia, and their ability to challenge for a championship. Again, we still didn't have a team in our own right, which was probably the disappointing aspect. But we were able to, I suppose, we were able to secure players from New Zealand or Waikato to come and join us, but also a couple of players from Melbourne too to fill those spots. I suppose we'd introduced and employed a coach to help us, who'd only been around with us for about 3 months, and then trying to teach the coach how to play the game and the rules and the things that you had to do to be able to get there. I suppose that was a challenging aspect of it all, and it all came to light very, very quickly for us. I mean, we had a mixture of young guys, middle-aged guys, and the older crowd as well that had some experience.
Interestingly enough, you're right about the 2013 series. There was a lot of players in that team that got the experience out of that 2013 series and then went on to make the 15. Now, one guy I want to mention now, because he wasn't there in 2015 due to health and all that sort of thing, but he could have been really someone very special. And he was opening the batting in the 2013 series. And we don't want to move along past this without talking about Glenn McGowran. He was a guy that came along only for a brief time, but he was part of that whole process, wasn't he? Part of that rebuilding.
Yeah, he was. And it was sad when he sadly passed away through a brain tumour that resurfaced not so long after the first one happened. But Glenn and I opened in 2013 for a few games, and Glenn was a guy that you could go to. He had a good cricketing brain. He was really playing club cricket at a reasonably high level in the Premier League, I think, for Keswick. Started losing his vision through the tumour. But he was one guy that I loved having around, because he knew the fielding positions. He knew the tactics of the game. He knew, he could read the play very quickly. He could come to me and say, have a go at this or have a go at that. And I suppose 2015 will always be, from my point of view, will be dedicated to him, because
we haven't forgotten about him. We just, and hopefully maybe his brother Paul or his dad Alec may listen to one of our podcasts, and so we'd like to say that he's definitely hasn't been forgotten.
No.
So 2013, building the foundation for 2015. Take us through it.
The first game we actually had to go out and play against New South Wales, and we were able to win that game quite comfortably with a bonus point. And it probably surprised me more so than anybody, because I probably didn't expect to restrict New South Wales to that 109 or 110 score that they did post. And then Stevie Palmer and I decided, well, we need to get these runs, and before we knew it, we had the bonus point in our hand.
Exactly right, and then it was onwards from there.
We won a few. Yeah, we won a few other games. Teams that we hadn't played so well against over a number of years, and beating Victoria, losing to Queensland in a very close game after not starting so well. That was an amazing game to play in and to learn a lot.
Hang on, we didn't beat them. They beat us in the first.
They beat us in the first
one. Yes, but don't rush ahead, because a lot of things were achieved. We beat Victoria for the first time, or South Australia beat Victoria for the first time. Queensland pipped us in that round there, but
last over.
The thing that everyone needs to realise about this tournament was it was a 5-day tournament. Every team played each other twice, so you were playing 2 games a day, 2 T20s a day. Now, the elite guys...
I think we had one morning off or one afternoon off.
One morning off. And, guys like the Strikers and this Aussie team are having a 2 or 3 day rest between T20s, whereas our guys are playing 2 in a day and then having to back up again the next day for at least 1, if not 2 more, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And for those guys, our game is a lot different to what the Cider game is. There's a lot more running between the wickets, a lot more talking and a lot more concentration that needs to be shown when doing these, playing these games. And I suppose the word that I used for the guys was talking about belief and believing, but having to believe in ourselves before we can believe in anything else. And I think a lot of our guys did do that at the time. I think we achieved success through, just keeping things simple and.
Well, hang on, just refresh my memory for a sec here, because the day in that tournament we played Victoria and Queensland on the same day. Right, so
we played
Queensland in the morning. Is that right?
Yeah.
So we lost to Queensland and then had to back up to play Victoria in the afternoon. And Victoria had Peter Robinson, Brett Wilson, and Peter Lowe in that side. That's Australian lineup of B2s right there. And they also had other B3s as well, like
Pritchard was another one that can move the ball pretty quick.
And we beat them in that game, didn't we?
Yeah, I think Lindsay was there too. Lindsay Heaven was there too.
No, he played for Queensland then. Sorry, mate.
Queensland was it? Oh, sorry, you. Yeah. You are right. Sorry. Yeah, so we'd actually played Queensland in the morning, and I remember getting out pretty cheaply. Lockie Wallace got his hand blown off by Lindsay's cover drive, which didn't go down well. So poor Lockie missed out in that afternoon game. And
I'd like to point one thing out about that Lindsay Heaven innings, which saved Queensland. Ricky Segura dropped him at mid-off.
Very early on.
Where's Ricky? Hope you're listening, Ricky, because that was a very disappointing moment for me.
I think the making of Stefan Nero was huge that year, because he hadn't been exposed to the game for that long, and he played an absolute gem of a series that year.
Now there's a young guy that got exposed to the game from a young age, and by the time he was 16, he was playing state level cricket, and by the time he was 18, he was in the Australian side. So there you go. Anyway, let's get to the final of this, because I've still got your tennis career to get through.
Yeah. Look, so the final came up. First time South Australia had ever been involved in a final, and I suppose I didn't really know how to handle it. Everybody was wanting us to do well and win, and there was lots of excited people from back home sending messages to players and those around. And I remember gave Stevie the new ball. We'd won the toss, gave Stevie Palmer the new ball, and by the time I don't think I'd even looked up when he took his first wicket, but I just remember Stevie taking 3 wickets in the first over, and I thought, has this game even started? What's going on? And I just had to try and settle the boys down a little bit. And Lindsay Heavy came out and started hitting us around a bit. think a few of our guys are getting a little bit stressed and a little bit worried. But we kept it together. The psychological thing was to keep them under 200. I think it was about 8 down. They were about 8 down in the end. And I remember saying to the boys, we can do this. We've just got to go out and score the runs. And we'd already changed our batting order from the previous game. So we tried to keep it that way again. And put Ricky out in the middle because we knew that Ricky could hit quick bowling, take on Ray Moxley and Lindsay Heaven. And I think Ricky took about 30 runs off in pretty quick time before he got himself out. And 2 for 71 at Drinks, and it was my turn.
It was a long road home from there. 120 runs off 10 overs. Yeah.
And the Queenslanders were pretty happy with themselves, and they were in your face, and just trying to egg their team on. And I just knew that I had to stay out there, and I had Stefan at the other end. So
you had Stefan and you
keep
ran
him calm.
Home.
I had to keep Stefan quite calm, but in the process, score runs too, and target the field the way I did.
First premiership captain in South Australian blind cricket history, and our first victory, which we do consider as a victory, even though there would be, and I do sound biased here, and I shouldn't, but it was a big moment for everyone, and we'd waited a long time.
I think it was a big relief. Also, I think from where we'd come from to what we were going through, the help of Saka and those around that helped that particular win happen. I mean, I just remember getting home with the trophy, and the cricket, South Australian cricket was so impressed and happy to see us there with the trophy. Yeah, all the hard work that people had put in, the Michael Zannis's, the Shane Sanfords, the likes of yourself, you've given up a lot of time to help bring some of these young guys through and support them not only on the ground but off the ground too. So
yes, now we are going to move on from cricket now because I've interviewed Stephen Palmer and he's talked about the next phase after that because that's when he came to the fore and started being the dominant player. But okay, so you're a premiership cricket captain. You've played for Australia. You've scored 2 international test centuries. That's most people would walk away from sports saying, you know what, that's not a bad little resume to have, but not Mark Haskett. He had other ideas in mind. So what happened next?
Oh, look, I was introduced to a game of blind tennis. Again, Ricky Segura was the guy that got me there, and a bit of convincing from family also helped with that process. And I will admit I was reluctant to go. Again, I wasn't sure.
Why? Why were you reluctant?
I suppose I didn't have anything. I didn't really play it. I mean, I played it as a kid. I played normal tennis as a kid. I played it, my primary school days, but it was never good. I'd lose 6 love or whatever it was every week, and I struggled, but then I never picked up a racket again. So I turned up this particular afternoon, and there was 2 other guys there with me, and we just started hitting the ball with one another, and I suppose that's the way it happened. Again, within about 3 or 4 months, we were again asked to nominate for a championship that we had no idea about. Going to Spain. We'd heard a little bit
immediately selected for the Australian side when you turned up.
Yeah, well, pretty much like 3 months. I think it was, we turned up in September and we were asked in November to put our hand up to go, and I suppose that's when the training started and the serious stuff started. I remember saying to Katie that I wanted to go buy a racket that afternoon, that I enjoyed it that much, so let's go and buy a racket. So we went and bought that. We went and bought shoes and clothes and whatever else. I still got my hat that I bought, and I still wear it 3 years later, all tangled and ratty and salty and that. So
you went to Spain. You got to Spain because there's no real lead up or anything like that. You just trained with Ricky and Dragon and Nicholas Bradley, who runs the program. Yeah. And you're off to Spain and you're playing in your first match. Tell us about your first match in the international arena of blind tennis.
Yeah, look, I'll just commend Nick on his hard work and dedication to the sport, because he's done an amazing job to get blind tennis to where it is today. But then to have the faith in the 3 of us to go over and do really well and succeed with the preparation that we had was a pretty big deal. Getting us over there for a start, not losing us, or not making sure no one got hurt, or
very little idea about blind people. Really, hasn't he? I mean, he did then. He doesn't now. He's good now, but I mean, yeah, he just had trained the Sassby kids for a while, and then you guys came along, and suddenly you're all in Spain. So the first match.
Yeah, so first game, I think I played a German guy who we've become friends with over the years, and played a German guy, and I ended up winning. I ended up winning 6-3 that first game. I thought, oh, geez, it was a tough game. It wasn't an easy game, but I just knew that I had to try and work out the tactics and strategies of how to beat someone that I've never played before. I suppose I talked to some of my fellow Australian representatives that have been there in Adam Fayad and Morris Gleeson and even our coach Samir. Speaking to these guys that had already done it to try and work out how to play this game and what I should do tactically, and that's what I did. I just kept going going to my strengths.
So you kept winning.
Kept winning. I won. In fact, I won all my pool games. I was fortunate enough to win or get through the quarterfinals, and I was again.
Now, were you excited? Did you expect this, or what were you thinking when you went in? What was your goal?
Look, I wasn't expecting a great deal. I knew it was my first chance at the tournament. So, look, just to go there was probably the goal. But to win one game was great. But then when I realised that I could challenge in a quarterfinal, I did feel a bit of pressure. And
so you're at the quarterfinal. So you're already going to be 8th in the world, whatever happens here.
Yeah.
So who did you play there?
Yeah, so I played the brother of this German Ante, and he's a younger brother, but I never played him. Didn't know what he was about. I did my warm-ups with him to try and tease him out a bit, to work out some of his weaknesses, to try and work out what he could see, couldn't see. So tactically, I was trying to do that prior to playing him, and I was actually down 3-1, not serving well, not hitting the ball well, just hitting balls continuously long, and I had to change something, and things just started to click from there, and I reeled off five games in a row to win that, and that was a massive relief. But I suppose I psyched myself out after that because I played the English.
Hang on a minute, don't psych yourself out. So you're on to the semi-finals.
Yes, onto the semi-finals.
Is that where you met Jim Curry for the first time?
I did, yeah, the great Jim Curry, who. So I'd never really played Jim. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't really speak to anybody. I suppose I was more focused on the Jim Curry because I'd heard of him and I knew that he was a good player. He'd made good finals in championships back in England.
Well, number one, isn't he, or is he a world?
No,
he's England's number one B2 player.
England's not. Yeah, England's number one B2 player, but the world number 2 player now. Well, after Spain anyway. I guess I just felt rushed and unprepared because it just came onto me so fast that I had no chance really.
He hit the ball harder than anyone else?
I wouldn't say harder. I think when I say harder, I mean in terms of he'd spin the ball or he'd push you back, he'd bring you forward. His game was so far more advanced than mine that I had to come home in that next summer to learn how to play like Jim or play better than him.
How do you think you've gone with that? Because we were going to go away this year to Italy, but it's been cancelled due to the COVID. So do you think you're a lot better player now than you were this time last year?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. I think the more practice I've had, just learning to be more patient, to be more watchful. I've changed my serve without giving away too many secrets, Timmy. I think I'd love to have that challenge of playing him again. Sometime soon. So
well, you got a lot of good hitting partners, don't you, that are pushing you to the limits. So
absolutely, and that's the one good positive that it's not just the one player anymore. I can play against the likes of Stevie Palmer. It's the likes of yourself, who have improved a lot as well over the time. Candice Kennedy, Ricky is another one. So,
Dragon and Liam Beckrick.
Yeah, and look, I've always strived to play people no matter who they are, but just challenging myself to get better each time.
We don't know if there'll be anything next year, so we may be looking at 2022 before we can do anything. But there's a big English and European circuit. Have you got your eye on going and doing any preparation tournaments before the Worlds, the next World Championships, or is going to go over there and give it your best shot, or how are you going to approach it?
I think I'd like to start here in Australia first and play tournaments like in Sydney or in Melbourne that they're proposing, and see what we can do here. But just look, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
I don't think we're going to go to Melbourne or Sydney in the near. Unfortunately, that obviously is all cancelled for the year, and we've just got to play amongst ourselves until then. So outside of sport, which is why we got you on, because you're an accomplished sports person, you have a family and you have a career. Do you want to quickly tell us about life outside of sport for you?
Look, life outside of sport's a pretty busy one. Being a school teacher, support staff to a couple of kids at a local school, keep me pretty busy. But having a 3-year-old to run around after, I suppose I'm pretty blessed with him, because he's got a lot of support here from his mother and his grandparents that do a lot when I'm not around, and certainly I'm thankful for that. Between sport and home life and work, it's a pretty busy time. So
you are. Well, the reason we got you on here is because you're a successful person in all areas of your life, and it's been an absolute pleasure hearing about your story, and I hope all our subscribed viewers enjoy that. And I'd just like to say thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Playing to Win. We hope you will join us next time. Search for our podcast on the Australian Disability Sport website, australiandisabilitysport.com.au. Follow the updates on Australian Disability Sport's Facebook page. Thank you, and just remember, we're all playing to win.